Okay, hello everybody. Welcome into this episode of Unwritten. This is miraculously, we made it past 10 episodes. I don't know how, but we did. My name is Colin McGuire. My co-host, of course, my best friend in the world, Jess. How are you?
I'm good, Colin. How are you?
I'm fabulous. Would you like to introduce our very special guest?
Absolutely. So today we have Dr. Bondy Shay Gibson, formerly now Dr. Bondy Gibson Learn. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The superintendent of Jefferson County Schools.
Yes, and we have so many schools questions to ask. So it's a good thing you are the superintendent of schools, or else this would be odd. Because if we just wanted to ask you football questions, it might not go well.
I don't know. Football questions might go better. We'll see.
Okay, well, we'll get to that at the end then. We'll get to that at the end. First of all, I kind of wanted to start with just kind of a little bit of your background. I was on your website earlier today. You have a website. Of the three of us, you're the only one who has a website. I'm very impressed by that. What inspired you to, is that just sort of your career in how you got to where you are?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to make it and to keep track of it. Sometimes people find me and ask me, they've either heard of something that's happened here and they want to ask me to come and speak, or to do a training for them. So it helps to have that up to point them towards.
Okay. So you have a long career in history. You've accomplished many, many things, but I think I read that you started teaching school in Atlanta. Was that correct?
Absolutely. Although I love the way that you didn't call me old. You just said you have this long and storied career. That takes mad skills. That takes mad skills to be able to spin that.
We're professionals here at the Journal. We're professionals.
You are.
No. But what was it like teaching in Atlanta?
My first job was teaching at the South Metro Psychoeducational Center, which was where Atlanta City, Fulton County, and Clayton County school systems sent all of the students who could not be educated for behavioral reasons in their home schools. So it was a trial by fire. I have to be honest, I didn't go to school originally to be a teacher. I had an undergrad degree in psychology. And I had some friends who were teachers, and I had done some mental health work with adults, and they said, no, this would be great. Woo! Yes. And I did my very first home visit to a family with a sheriff's deputy and a bulletproof vest.
Oh my goodness.
Because we had to go into a neighborhood at that time in the early 90s that was a dangerous neighborhood. So
it looks like Jess is thinking. It looked like Jess had something to say, so I wasn't going to say anything. What were you going to say, Jess?
I don't even know. What was it about education that kept you in it then?
Oh, actually, that was one of my best jobs. Just because it's like anything else. So if you love something, if you're good at it, in some ways you want to do the hardest thing of that. You know what I mean? To sort of prove yourself. Like there are a lot of places that I could go and teach or work on education that, to be clear, a whole lot of people could be okay in that situation. They could go in. There aren't as many people who would be willing to walk into a school with children who had rape convictions, had assault convictions, who had been a witness to one of their parents killing the other parent in a drug deal that had gone very badly, who were diagnosed very young with schizophrenia and had dissociative episodes. I mean, it was a chaotic, sometimes dangerous. I got stabbed twice, actually. But once with a pair of scissors and once with the pencil, I will say the scissors hurt less. I don't know why. I got urinated on. Just it let me see firsthand what happens when a society, there's a good quote. It's easier to build strong boys than it is to fix, broken men. So if you start early, it works better. And when you don't, you see some outrageously broken lives from people behaving badly or not intervening when they could have, should have, would have. And that's instructive, especially early on.
Does that shape you to this day in terms of you're sort of fearless? I would think there's nothing anybody could throw at you that you haven't seen. You
are the only one of us who's been stabbed.
Well, there's that. Yeah, I guess so. That's true. That's true. I do tend to be a little bit bolder. Some of that comes with age, you kind of figure out what you can and can't do. But I also sometimes have more of a sense of urgency, because and I'm sure you also saw if you looked through that resume that I spent part of my career working with adults who had been institutionalized for a big part of their lives. And if you work in a field or an industry or a place where you've seen what happens when it goes wrong, when it's done badly and it affects people's lives, then when you get into a situation where your decisions are what helps decide whether it goes well or badly, you can get pretty damn fierce about making sure what you think is going to go well is what gets done. So I will say that.
Well, that kind of, me personally watching you over the last year on the education beat, I feel like you're very proactive in trying to do the best for students, doing what you feel is best for the students, whether or not that's the right decision. You take responsibility when you do see other ways. Do you feel like that's kind of shaped your morality over the years?
Wow, that is quite a question.
Yeah, wow, morality. Woo!
Yeah, exactly. Are you going to heaven, Bondy?
Yeah, exactly.
A question my mother asks. No. Wow, that is a heavy question. I think that I have certainly been humbled a number of times and we've all done it. You have no other consistent perspective but your own. You can ask other people, you can hear their ideas, but everything has to get filtered through your lens. And sometimes my lens is wrong. I jump into something because I think it's the right thing for kids, and I can be kind of very focused on it. And then I have to step back sometimes and consider perspectives that I just didn't have access to or didn't anticipate. And I have to pivot. And I think one of the hardest things about being a good administrator, especially in this day and age, is to be really good at it. You have to be open and closed at the same time. You got to be open to all of these people like giving you their ideas and hearing their perspectives, so that solutions you come up with like represent the maximum amount of good. But you also have to defend yourself or disassociate yourself a little bit, because you just get hammered, like very viciously, personally hammered, and you're going to make mistakes and you're going to have defeats and you're going to have people, because you have to make hard decisions and you make them for literally thousands of people. There's always going to be a percentage of those people who don't like your decision and who don't like you. So some folks later on in their career, they close up and they're just like, look, I'm tired of getting hammered. And then that stuff doesn't come in. And then there's some people who get later on in their career and they just are like, deuces, I'm out, because I can't close myself off, but I can't keep taking this pain. So it's just this constant sort of like, take a deep breath when you need to, and then step back into that fray when you need to. Sometimes I get that right. Sometimes I get it wrong.
You were talking about mistakes. Can you tell us about perhaps one of your most notable mistakes, one you wish you could have back?
Oh my gosh, there's 100 things that I wish that I could have back. Most of them controversial. I will say probably, what's one of the things that I wish I could have back? Probably the latest one is when we rolled out the Black Math Genius program. And I, in sort of this, narrow lens, I can see the math scores and I can see who is struggling the most and who needs the most help. And I can see a program that has shown success with that group. But what I failed to see was how even that title and the current political climate really led to people laying a lot of other ideas and perceptions and I think misdirected sometimes anger and politicism onto that. And so we ended up, I don't regret for a second that I did it. It was instructive in that we ended up coming back and saying, okay, hold on, I hear you. And I held a series of community forums, like meetings, where we did small groups of meetings with people who were for and against, and they both got to talk face to face about what their fears were, what their frustrations were. And then we took all of their comments and we reconstituted the program, renamed it to be accurate, explained it to everybody, put out demonstrations of it. And it was much better received and people understood it. But most of my mistakes are ones of sometimes enthusiasm, but often not clearly communicating with all of these different constituents who have very different ideas. Communication is by far usually the mistake hinterland, let me just say.
That kind of leads me into what I was gonna ask. This last year has to have been a million lessons thrown into one year because of everything going on. It seems like communication might be the lesson that's most needed during this time or most learned during this time. That's a very good one. Right now, a lot of the lessons we've been learning have been about grace, sort of. Yes, communication, but a lot about communication these days is communication takes both communicating an idea, but listening, hearing, absorbing. No, people are struggling to listen right now. There is so much noise and anger at how the world just is right now that people are taking out on. You can't take it out in the world. You can't be, there's nobody to go smack around. There's no, pandemic man to go smack around, or there's no. So what happens is you have a lot of frustrated people and they are either sort of withdrawing or they're taking it out on the people around them. And so much of what we talk about is give other people around you grace. They're stressed too. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to say things they might not mean. Kids are going to not be themselves, and give yourself some grace. Same thing. You're going to make some mistakes. You're going to say things that you don't mean, and don't beat yourself up about it. Apologize, learn from it, know better, do better.
So with that in mind, would you consider the pandemic, especially throughout this time, it's been almost 2 years, has this been perhaps the most difficult time of your career to figure out how to navigate? Because there's no real template about this. There's no real guidebook.
Number one, yes, by far. I mean, the strike and those were crazy times, but nothing like this. And I would say they're difficult, not just logistically, they've certainly been the biggest challenge probably school systems have ever had. But what is striking is the emotion attached to it. that is what has been the fears around it, the distrust around it, the frustration, the anger, that has been incredibly difficult to navigate, not just for me, for every superintendent.
You and I have talked about this before. You in particular have a really unique point of view because you've got your son in the district that you are superintendent for. What's that been like? Has it helped you see the immediate effects of the decisions you're making?
Yes, absolutely. And of course, every kid's different. So, but I will say one of the ways that it brings home a lot of things for me, like especially when we were on full remote and I was still working.
Yeah.
So I had to leave every morning, and he had to get himself up and get to every class and go, and just the isolation and seeing him and legitimately, I don't want to talk about him, call him out in front of, but he and his peers, the sadness, just the utter sadness and the frustration and being so overwhelmed and hating every moment of it. And that was really hard to see. I think maybe I told you before we met the story about the bus driver calling. I did, literally in my kitchen in tears. And those are the times when I'm like, okay, this is how our parents are feeling. Yeah.
Jess was telling me that you have a substitution issue. You're kind of low on substitute teachers.
Yes.
And
have you driven by a Ruby Tuesdays offering like $500 bonuses to come wait tables? Yes, we are.
As soon as we're done here, I'm going to work at Applebee's. So I'm just letting you know. So I think, Jess, did you tell me that you actually stepped in, that you taught too when you were low on substitute teachers? Is that true?
Oh my gosh, I've substitute taught every week since the beginning of school, as have we've a couple of times we have emptied out the school board office and said, if you can help, go help. If you're a secretary, if you want to go make copies, whatever you can do, go help. And to their credit, they have. But I've taught kindergarten, first grade. Actually, I was the assistant to a lovely assistant who taught the kindergarten because she's fabulous. I taught fourth grade. I taught high school math. I was a substitute cook. I got my food handler's license. I passed the test. You'll be glad to know. So yeah, we really have been hit by the same shortages as everyone else. We actually just last night at our board meeting passed the first stage of a pretty enormous multi-year retention and recruitment plan for increasing salaries and benefits and autonomy, and doing some fairly creative things for the staff. We've been working on that plan for 6 months with committees and getting input from teachers and service personnel to ask what they want and need to be able to work here. And they had some great ideas.
I think you've brought it up during board meetings that they're having counties across the state who have closed just due to lack of staffing. Mm-hmm. Is it a scary thing to even think about? But at the same time, you're lucky because it hasn't affected Jefferson yet, or if it ever does.
Mm-hmm. Yes, some school systems went full remote for the entire school system. Some of them are doing rolling closures. They get their absentee count. We have an automated system called SIMS that people call into and put in their absences. So we know, we keep counts. I get a text or a phone call that says, hey, Dr. Gibson, we're at 32%, or, oh my gosh, it's 9 o'clock at night and we have 81 unfilled absences right now. I'm going to need everybody, all hands on deck. So, especially in smaller systems, they are scrambling. Right now, we are averaging about 150 open positions a day. Now that's not necessary. Some of that's positions that just haven't ever been filled. We haven't had anybody in them full time, or somebody who has a job is absent. And of those, about 74 of them a day, we don't get filled. We don't have enough subs. And so that means people who are already in the system are doing their job and the other job on top of it. And so that is an enormous strain.
And as we've heard a million times over this pandemic, teachers, educators, service personnel, all rightfully so, are exhausted at this time. So that just has to add to that stress.
It does. We've seen high stress rates. We have an employee assistance program for our staff to go and get counseling. We've talked with folks about social emotional supports. We have social work staff. We've put a lot into supporting kids, and we've also tried to put a lot into supporting our staff. We have a couple of initiatives that we're rolling out over the next week or two to give them time, because there are a lot of things that go into serving children that you can't do when kids are in front of you. You know, it's sort of like being a great football team. You know, you're talking about sports and football. Like, you don't get to a Super Bowl based on what you do on the field that day. It was all that prep. It was the drafting. It was the practices. It was the weightlifting. That's what helps you play well that day. Same thing happens in school. All of the deep cleaning on schools and the prep in the buses and the doing lesson plans and creating all of the materials and getting them set up for the kids, and all of those things are what's suffering, because during the times that we have set aside for our staff to do that during the day, they're not, because they're covering somebody else's job. And that's how we're covering things is, you know, you got a teacher out, then I've got 5 or 6 other teachers giving up their planning periods or their lunch or both, covering those classes.
Do you, and I know this is an impossible question to answer really, but within this school year, which goes to what, May, June, something, July, I don't know. It always changes. Do you anticipate being able to have some sense of normalcy? Or do you think this is going to go on for the next few years? It's going to be a long, long time before things get back.
Oh, you. Yes, let me whip out my crystal ball. I don't think that that quote unquote normal is going to be what it was before the pandemic. We've accustomed both kids and parents to several things that we weren't doing before in terms of technology, in terms of communication, and in terms of, quite frankly, like public involvement in education, for better or for worse. So I don't think those things will change. I do think that for us, we do have to get out of the public health business. We're not public health administrators, and it's been very unfair to place superintendents and school boards in that position, because it's really just putting them in the crosshairs. We just want to educate kids, and the whole mask controversy in particular, masks aren't great for kids. If it's masks or no mask, and you ask which ones are better for education for kids, no masks every time. Try, as I was last Friday. Okay, today's letter of the day is F. F, 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 but it's hard to say F, 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 and do I know whether or not you're doing it correctly? Or, okay, we're going to talk about how it feels when someone's mean to us. So what expression do you have? Are you happy or are you sad? Or are you mad? I mean, those kind of things that we do all day, but at the same time, it's worse to not have them in school at all. So right now, there's a lot of lesser of two evils. I would like to get to the point of better of two options rather than lesser of two evils.
This is something that I don't even know if it's affected you guys, but I've seen it on TikTok because I spend too much time on TikTok. But you guys had to deal with these TikTok challenges that we're seeing.
It's like, could you stop? You know, like people are like, like society is digging a hole and I want to take the shovel away. Like, I just want to take the shovel away. Yes, we've sent out messages. We have had some students who've taken on those challenges, which are when you're down 2 custodians and you walk in the bathroom and somebody's ripped the soap dispenser off the wall because some idiot on TikTok that they don't know, never met, tells them that this would be a cool thing to do. It's ridiculous. But yeah, we're dealing with that as well.
I only have one more serious question, and and then Jess, if you don't have any, we can go to the fun questions.
You can go ahead, Colin.
Oh, that's because and they'll all be about your morals. If you have,
this will be a short interview then.
But I noticed going back to your website for just a second, you volunteer a lot. It seems like you like to do a lot of different stuff. Was volunteering always something you wanted to be involved with? Is that still something you just love helping people?
I wish I could come off all Pollyanna-ish and say, yes, God chose me to be. No, I feel that way about education. I'll say that education was, that was my ticket out. I did come from a fairly impoverished background myself, and my son will never know any of those struggles because I got the education that I did. So that, whatever that takes. In terms of the other organizations, a lot of those are just, I will say curiosity. A lot of them is I get fascinated by, oh, look, CASA, that's a great idea. What are you guys doing? Or like right now, United Way, Penny Porter and the local United Way, it's an amazing organization. And they get out into all of these complicated problems of homelessness and food insecurity and, domestic violence. And like, they are just trying to make the world a better place. And I'm like, go you. So
that's what we're like too. Go you. So now we'll get into the fun questions. The first of which is, are you going to heaven or hell? No, I'm kidding. That's a
good question. If there's a half and half, like a half decaf,
purgatory,
that might be where I end up.
I think I read you went to Florida State for your undergrad degree. Is that correct?
I did. Go Noles.
Okay, Now my first question is, why are they so terrible at football this year?
Oh, that's such a good question. Well, they weren't when I was there. I can tell you that.
You had Bobby Bowden, probably. I would assume. Was he
exactly
there? Yeah.
Bobby Bowden. Mm-hmm. I actually played in Doak Campbell Stadium. Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I played on the women's rugby team, and we did an exhibition match at halftime of the homecoming game, and that was fun. It's very loud. It's very, very loud.
Much like you are the one of only of us, you're the only one of us who's ever gone viral. What was that like last year, going viral for the snow day letter?
Oh my God. Number one, the internet giveth and the internet taketh away. So let's just be, it owed me. I just gotta say, because number one, these people from all over, literally the world. I got letters from Australia and all over the place, talking about when they were kids and how much they loved to go out in the snow and telling me stories about their parents and from 50 years ago. And that was awesome. I got all of these letters and pictures of people out in the snow and things like that. And I got to be on, and of course your show, this is an honor, but I got to go on NPR, which I love NPR. And
you think NPR is better than us?
Only because they have better equipment. They just have better equipment. That's all.
Better equipment? This is state of the art. So you went on NPR. How was that? Was it fun?
That was fun. She was amazing. NPR was amazing. I had a friend of mine take a screenshot and send it to my wife, and it was from Katie Corrick's, I guess her Instagram account, and it said, "I don't know you, Bondy Shay Gibson, but I love you." I was like, yes, Katie Corrick loves me. But,
well, we love you too.
That was my moment. I took my 15 seconds. I'm good. I'm happy to step aside for the next person.
Well, wait until this interview goes viral, and then we'll start it all again. So I always like to ask the food questions. I'm gonna try and switch it up and say it this way. Of all the food served in all of the schools in Jefferson County, for lunch, for breakfast, I don't know, for anything else, what do you think is the best your cafeteria has to offer?
Wow. I would say the yeast rolls are my favorite. Actually, the very nice cafeteria staff at Jefferson High School let me come in with them. Woo, this was pre-pandemic, and learn how to make yeast rolls. Of course, it was learn how to make several hundred yeast rolls at one time, yeah. But they make them from scratch, which is awesome. My son would say the green beans at Charlestown Middle School are his favorite. I do not make them as well as they do, which he reminds me repeatedly.
My gram used to smuggle those rolls home when she was a cafeteria lady at Shipley. So yeah, they're good.
Aren't they the best? Aren't they the best? You know what? The next time you come, I will make sure that I get you. I got you.
I wanted to ask, because I'm very girly, what's more stressful, a wedding or superintendent right now? Because I hated planning my own wedding.
Oh, by far, superintendent. The wedding wasn't stressful. That was time of my life.
Wedding?
So blessed. Ma'am?
Did you have a favorite moment from your wedding?
Wow, that's when I actually got the yes. I mean, that was, when I was able to close the deal, that was it. But yeah.
Well, it's good that there was speculation as to whether or not you get the yes. That's always good going into your wedding.
Yeah, well, sometimes I better to overshoot sometimes. I when you're trying to marry up, there's always that moment when you're like, are they gonna figure out before the yes that I got the better deal? Like, when are they gonna figure that out? Luckily, it wasn't before the wedding. So.
That's true. So what was the last concert you attended?
Oh my gosh, that is a good question. Holy cow. Oh my God.
Not like the 5th grade clarinet recital either.
No. I don't remember. The last play I went and saw was a couple of weeks ago. I went and saw Three Little Birds, the adaptation from the Bob Marley song over in Frederick. And that was awesome.
That sounds cool.
No, yeah. My son likes theater. He's in theater at Washington High School. So we've been to see a lot of shows. We're going to see Hadestown in 2 weeks.
I'll wrap up my fun questions. When you're not being superintendent, what do you like to do to relax?
Oh, I love to go hiking. That's like one of my favorite things, is being outside and going hiking. I like to get beaten in tennis, because that's all that ever happens, is that I lose. I really, 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 I know this is going to sound geeky, but it's true. I really love to read. My house is only a couple of blocks from the Charlestown Library, and my son and I go down every Thursday, because that's the day they're open late till 6 p.m. and get a new set of books. We read a lot. We have a little free library outside of our house, because we're on the main street and most people know that the superintendent lives there. Like, there is a lot of traffic getting books and dropping books off. So yeah.
I'll wrap it up by asking this. If you could have dinner with 3 people, dead or alive, who would they be?
Oh my gosh. I would say number 1, and again, Katharine Hepburn, who I adore. I thought that she was an amazing, icon at a time when there weren't very many of those. Nelson Mandela, I'm not sure how somebody, even with the power of your convictions, like stands that kind of time. You get so frustrated when you want to do all these great things in the world and you feel like you're running out of time.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? Like I can't fathom how that is. And I guess the last one would probably be my grandmother, who died when I was fairly young. But I was born 2 days before her birthday, and it would be great to see her and see what she thinks about how it all turned out.
Oh. Well, we won't hold it against you that you didn't put me and Jess on that list. But maybe if you had 5, we'd be there. I don't know.
If I had 5.
You had 5. But we really can't thank you enough for taking the time. We know you're so busy with everything going on, and thank you so much. Good luck with the rest of the school year. There will never be normal again, like you said. I hope you go to heaven, not to hell, unlike Jess suggested earlier.
You're so mean, Colin.
But good luck with everything, and thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you guys. It was a great day. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.